Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a little bit of a market update. I decided not to release my video. Next time when I do a video, I'm going to release it. Maybe I just will release it for kicks for my top 10 list of cards that I chose I would spec for 2014, because now after the Pro Tour, I've missed the boat on like half of them, as half of them did have an incredibly huge spike increase due to Pro Tour Born of the Gods, as they were used in some of the decks that did hit top 8, especially the Storm decks and the Affinity decks really had a price on some of the cards, the specs that I made in that. But anyway, I'm going to talk about a few cards that saw just as much play as some of these other cards that have spiked, if not more. And I think it's just they haven't crazily went up just because they're unexciting. And a lot of people just, they look at a card. Usually the card that sells out the quickest is the card that holds the deck together, or the poster child card of the deck, which like in Storm would be Pyromancer's Ascension and Past in Flames, because the deck completely revolves around those two cards. So those are the first two cards to sell out. But then people forget about other cards that are utilized like crazy, which are the lands. And there's two cards right now that I don't think got as much exposure, or it still have a lot of room to grow just because how many were used in the Pro Tour. Let's just take a look at here is Sulfur Falls. There's 9 of them in the top 8 decks. Let's just check over these top 8 decks. So first of all, there's 2 copies in the let's zoom in on this one here. There's 2 copies here in the kind of WR American Twin, I guess is what they like to call it. There's 2 copies of Sulfur Falls there. And then we go up to this Blue Moon, doesn't use any, but it could if it wanted to use them instead of maybe, well, it probably wouldn't want to. Instead there's maybe one of Mountain. I'm sure they could chuck in a Sulfur Falls. It's definitely an option there. Then we go over to the UR Twin, and there's 3 copies of Sulfur Falls in here. All right. Then we go up to another American Control, and there is 2 more copies of Sulfur Falls. Then we go up to the Tarmo Twin, and there's 2 more copies. So I think it's 11 because I didn't think I counted these. 2 more copies there. And then Storm usually does. Like Storm, you can either go Chivalry for Sulfur Falls. They're both very similar. I think that his version likes to run Chivalry as it can guarantee an untap land. But a lot of times, if you don't even have the Sheevan Reefs, a lot of times it's not worth replacing it for Sheevan Reefs. Just chuck in the Sulfur Falls. I've used both in Storm before. They're both fine. And of course, if you don't have the fetch lands, then you are going to be putting in Sulfur Falls instead of the Tarns and the Misty Rainforests. All right, and you got to keep that in mind when people are coming into Modern Season. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of players playing these fetch lands, but there's going to be a ton of people that just flat out can't afford to run the fetch lands in Storm and want to run this deck, so they will be using Sulfur Falls. And that is going to have an effect on the market. Prices always do. People play decks because they can afford them. You're not going to go out and sell your car to buy a Magic deck to play at a PTQ. You're going to find a deck that fits your budget and still play in the tournament, because budget decks can get there. All right, so anyway, so there's an Affinity, and then we have a Melira pod. If I were going to make a spec, if I were going to say any card was going to go up in value, it would be Sulfur Falls. So definitely, I think it has some room to grow at $5. I think we might see a huge spike. I don't know, 5 seems kind of right for an Innistrad land. And I guess one of the things when you're looking at a card is to realize what its reprintability is. I guess the chance that this card gets reprinted, and it's extremely high. Sulfur Falls will be reprinted, but probably not for another 2 years, I wouldn't think. So it's got a lot of room to grow. All right, the other one that I want to talk about again, which is made a 3 of in the Razorverge in the top 8 in the Melira pod list, is Razorverge Thicket, and it's been creeping up now for quite a while, and it's because it sees a ton of play in Modern. Sees Bogles is one of the #1 decks, and there was a ton of Bogles decks. I think it was top 5 of the amount of decks that are actually played in Pro Tour. You can come over to the mothership here, and they have articles about it. Maybe we'll find it again. The event coverage here will have articles about the number of decks used. But Razorverge Thicket is a 3 of in the Melira pod. I've seen it as high as a 4 of in Melira pod. And it's also in there. The deck that's called Hatebears, which is basically like green white aggro. That has a bunch of, they call it bears because it's a bunch of 2-drops, a bunch of 2/2s like Kozali Pride Mage and whatnot that just hate out certain strategies. And it's usually a 4 of or 3 of in Hatebears, as a lot of them don't like fetch lands in Hatebears because you're running cards that like Aven Mind Sensor, and I'm trying to think of the other cat guy, Leonin Arbiter, that really make it hard for players to search libraries. So you don't want to be affecting your own searching your own library by if you have a lot Leonin Arbiter out, you can't crack your own fetch land, so they don't use them. Anywho, so there's 3 in that, and then of course the Bogles list. See if we can actually find one here. Let's go to event coverage. I think I had like a top deck list of, saw it somewhere here. Maybe I'll have to find it for you again. But anywho, there was a ton of Bogles in the decks that finished 18 points or higher. They did like an 18 points or higher deck, and there was like 100 decks, and there's a ton of Bogles in there. In fact, it shows up on the number 1 on the deck that they just alphabetical. I think they go by alphabetical of the person piloting it, and the person with the alphabetical name is actually playing Bogles. So right there, it's going to get a lot of views just from the luck of the draw being at the top of the alphabet. So Razorverge Thicket's another one that I can't justify this being $3.50. I think it was in a pre-constructed deck, but if you look at kind of the Copperline Gorge, which sees the second most amount of play in Modern, it's the same price, and it's going down because this was one that was used ton in Jund every once in a while. It is run in Living End, but it did see a ton of play in Jund, and now Jund is kind of, Jund's is shifting over to more of a junk list or just a black-green list without Deathrite Shaman. So Copperline Gorge is going to go down. And the other one that saw play in Jund was Blackcleave Cliffs, and it's $8, but it's taken a crash on MTGO. Huge crash on MTGO, but paper it's still going up. So, and it's seeing a lot less play now because of Jund going, and Jund and Burn got hit hard. Burn probably got hit the hardest. Well, maybe Jund. I would say Jund got hit the hardest, but number 2 deck that got hit was Burn, because they absolutely love Deathrite Shaman in the Burn deck, because they did use like 8 fetch lands, because fetch lands had great synergy with Grim Lavamancer as well, because it put cards in your graveyard, as well as you could accelerate with Deathrite Shaman into 2 spells that turn. You could cast like 2 lightning bolts with a fetch land and a Deathrite Shaman out, and then later game you can use the Deathrite Shaman to exile your lightning bolts and still do 2 damage. And it also, if you had to play life gain, if you had to survive a turn by exiling a creature, you could actually do that. In some burns they'd like run a 1 of Overgrown Tomb or something in there for the green mana for the Deathrite Shaman to actually exile a creature. And so it was just a utility card stuck in a burn deck, which made it really, 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 really powerful. I don't think I saw many burn decks not using Deathrite Shaman just because it acted like another Grim Lavamancer. In fact, a lot of decks were just replacing Grim Lavamancer for the Deathrite Shaman. Anyway, so Cliffs now they don't need the black mana, the first turn black mana. I'm not sure they'll even run it in burn because, again, it was something they could first turn have an untapped land to actually cast their Deathrite Shaman and whatnot. So anywho, that is the 2 cards. I guess would be my biggest market alert. The cards that are going like crazy right now, of course, I did a little list on that. It's like Pyromancer's Ascension, Amulet of Vigor, a lot of the packs like Slaughtering Pact, Pact of Negation, Summoner's Pact. Those are going up a lot. There's few cards, like I think the biggest move, we'll look at the movers and shakers. Again, this is all brought to you by MTG Goldfish. This is my kind of go-to site. I absolutely love this place. I'm not sponsored by them whatsoever. I just use this site probably more than any other site. So big shout out to them. Then we have over here in prices, you can go the movers and shakers. It is sometimes a little bit behind, but the biggest ones on Paper Magic right now that have gone up in the past day are Pyromancer's Ascension. Blood Moon was everywhere, of course. Living End, but the biggest one from the Pro Tour is Azuz's Lost But Seeking went a whopping $14, and Teferi Mage of Zalfir went up $20, and it's only like a 1 of in a ton of decks. So if you have any of these copies, I say sell them. That's way too much of a price increase, way too much, and it is starting to dive again. And I say chuck these up, get rid of them. I don't foresee this to hold a 20. I know it's very popular in EDH decks, as it's got some very, and casual decks is got some very degenerate combos. But anyway, those are my specs. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.